There's a moment intelligent people learn to fear more than failure. It's not the enemy with a plan, not the rival with ambition, not even the traitor with motive. It's the fool with momentum. You know the type: loud certainty, simple conclusions, a mouth that runs faster than the mind behind it. They misunderstand the room, misread the stakes, and yet somehow become the center of gravity because crowds love confidence more than competence and noise more than nuance. Here is the first law you must accept. Stupidity is not harmless. It is contagious. It multiplies through institutions like mold. It hijacks meetings, ruins alliances, detonates strategy with one careless sentence. And the most dangerous part is this: idiots do not feel the weight of consequences. They move through life like a spark in a dry forest, amazed by the fire they started. So what do intelligent people do? Do they correct them, argue them into clarity, expose them and watch the world applaud reason? No, because intelligence without power is only frustration dressed as pride. And if you try to fight stupidity on its own terms, volume, emotion, public spectacle, you will lose. Not because you are wrong, because the arena is designed for them. Machiavelli would tell you something colder. You do not defeat foolishness by teaching it. You defeat it by controlling the conditions in which it can act. So the question isn't how to deal with idiots. The question is, how do you remain sovereign in a world where the loudest person can steer the ship and crash it with a smile? Let's begin. The first mistake intelligent people make with idiots is moralizing. They treat stupidity like a character flaw that can be corrected with facts, patience, or a better explanation. They lean forward, they clarify, they debate, they bring charts to a knife fight, and then they leave the room exhausted, shocked that nothing changed. Machiavelli would call this a failure of realism, because idiot is not a diagnosis, it is a role, a predictable pattern of behavior inside a social system, and the system rewards that role more often than it punishes it. The idiot thrives because the world is not governed by truth. It is governed by perception, emotion, and momentum. So, the first principle is simple: do not educate what you should contain. You don't deal with an idiot the way a teacher deals with a student. You deal with them the way a strategist deals with a wildfire. You don't argue with flames. You remove oxygen. You build fire breaks. You decide what the fire can reach. In court politics, Machiavelli watched brilliant men destroyed not by rivals, but by incompetence, placed near the prince favorites who spoke too freely, misinterpreted orders, offended allies, or promised what could not be delivered. The intelligent advisor who tried to correct them publicly became the enemy. The fool remained, because the fool made the ruler feel powerful and unchallenged. That's your modern reality. In offices, families, friend groups, online spaces, idiots are protected by something intelligence often lacks: social insulation. They are nice. They are fun. They are just being honest. They are not that deep, and anyone who confronts them becomes the problem for making things tense. So you must stop thinking like a moral person and start thinking like a ruler. Your goal is not to prove you're right. Your goal is to prevent damage. Here's how that begins. First, control access. Stupidity becomes dangerous when it is close to decision-making. If someone repeatedly demonstrates poor judgment, you do not invite them into high-stakes conversations. You do not give them partial information and hope they handle it responsibly. You don't keep them in the loop to be polite. Politeness is expensive. You create tiers. You decide who gets the full map and who only gets the next step. To the idiot, this feels like inclusion. To you, it is containment. Second, control the frame. Idiots win debates because they drag you into their terrain: simplistic binaries, emotional accusations, loud certainty. If you accept their frame, you are already losing. Your intelligence becomes a liability because it tempts you to respond to every wrong detail. Machiavelli would advise restraint. Speak less than you know. Instead of correcting, you reframe, You reduce the conversation to outcomes and accountability, not, "That's incorrect." But if we do that, what happens next? Not, "You don't understand," but "Who owns the result if this fails?" Stupidity hates responsibility. It thrives in fog. When you attach consequences to their words, their confidence collapses or becomes exposed without you lifting a finger. Third, control their incentives. Most idiots aren't evil, they're rewarded. They interrupt because interruption gets attention. They oversimplify because crowds clap for certainty. They take credit because nobody challenges them. They escalate conflict because drama gives them importance. So you starve the reward. You don't laugh at the reckless joke. You don't react to the provocation. You don't argue for an hour and grant them center stage. Your emotional restraint is not passivity. It is power. It tells the room, "This person cannot move me." And when you cannot be moved, you cannot be used. Here's the coldest truth. The intelligent person who constantly corrects the idiot becomes their servant. Because now, your energy exists to manage their chaos. You become the translator, the babysitter, the cleanup crew, and the idiot remains unchanged because you absorb the cost of their behavior. Machiavelli would never allow that arrangement. A prince does not run behind the village fool fixing his broken promises. A prince builds systems where the fool cannot touch the levers. So in this first chapter, understand the foundation. Intelligence is not your weapon. Structure is. The moment you stop trying to fix idiots and start engineering around them, you step into sovereignty. You stop bleeding. You stop explaining. You stop being dragged into the mud to prove you're clean. And from there, you can do something far more strategic than winning arguments. You can win outcomes. Your second advantage over an idiot is not intelligence. It is timing. Idiots speak immediately. They react in real time. They rush to fill silence because silence feels like weakness to them. And that is exactly why they are predictable. Machiavelli understood that most power is not force. It is tempo. The ability to decide when things happen, and therefore how they happen. The man who controls the pace controls the narrative. The man who controls the narrative controls the crowd. So here's the second principle. Never meet stupidity at its speed. When an idiot provokes you, misquotes you, insults you, corners you publicly, the intelligent impulse is to correct instantly. You want the room to see the truth right now. You want to rescue your reputation before the lie settles. That urgency is the trap, because the idiot doesn't need to be right. They only need you to look emotional, defensive, or obsessed. The moment you scramble to respond, you grant them status. They became important enough to move you. A prince does not rush. He lets others rush. He watches who panics. He watches who over-explains. He watches who exposes their insecurity by trying too hard. Strategic silence is not avoidance. It is a weapon that forces the other person to keep talking. And idiots cannot survive open space. Give them silence, and they will pour themselves into it, contradicting, exaggerating, revealing their emptiness. So the first move is restraint. When they say something stupid, do not correct every detail. When they accuse you, do not defend every corner. When they posture, do not compete for volume. Let the smoke rise. Smoke reveals where the fire is. Then you strike later, privately, or through structure, because intelligent people lose power when they insist on winning the moment. Machiavelli would ask you, what matters more, your ego or your position? If you correct the idiot publicly, you create a spectacle, and spectacle has its own laws. The crowd rarely rewards the careful thinker. The crowd rewards whoever entertains, whoever seems confident, whoever feels like the winner. If you humiliate the fool, you may win the logic and lose the war. The fool becomes a martyr. The room becomes resentful. You become condescending. And suddenly the idiot has allies, not because they were right, but because you made them feel small. So instead, delay. Delay is power because it allows you to choose the arena. In the right arena, stupidity collapses without drama. Here's how you do it. First, move the conversation from opinion to process. Idiots thrive in open discussion because open discussion has no gates. Everything is just a thought. Everything is an idea. Nothing has to survive reality. So you say, put it in writing. You say, let's define success metrics. You say, walk me through the steps, and you say it calmly, like it's normal. Writing is a blade. It forces clarity. It exposes gaps. It makes people accountable for specifics, not vibes. The idiot who performs brilliantly in conversation suddenly becomes cautious when they have to commit to a plan that can be reviewed later. Second, separate audience from consequence. Never discipline an idiot in front of spectators unless you are ready to destroy them completely. Otherwise, you create a public contest, and contests create factions. Machiavelli often advised that harsh actions, when necessary, should be swift, controlled, and strategically placed so that resentment cannot keep reproducing. In modern terms, if you need to correct, do it where it produces compliance, not applause. A private correction produces adjustment. A public correction produces revenge. Third, use the echo test. When someone says something stupid, you don't attack it. You repeat it back, cleaned of emotion, stripped down to its logic. So you're saying we should do X, which means Y happens, and we accept Z risk, correct? This is a mirror. And many fools panic when they hear their own thought in a clear sentence, because now the room can see what it really is. If they double down, they look reckless. If they retreat, they look inconsistent. Either way, you didn't fight them. You made them carry their own weight. The intelligent person's greatest temptation is to reveal superiority. Resist that. Power is not showing you are smarter. Power is arranging the world so your opponent's stupidity becomes self-defeating, and timing is the lever. You let them speak first. You let them commit. You let them expose themselves. Then, when the room is ready, when the consequences are visible, even to the emotionally simple, you move with precision, not fast, final. Because in the end, the idiot's strength is speed without thought. Your strength is thought that chooses the moment. There is a specific kind of idiot that destroys intelligent people faster than any other. Not the loud one, not the ignorant one, not even the arrogant one. The dangerous one is the socially protected one, the fool wrapped in charisma, the incompetent wrapped in friendliness, the reckless wrapped in good intentions. Machiavelli would recognize them instantly. The court favorite who survives every mistake because they are emotionally useful to someone above them. They entertain, they flatter, they simplify reality into comfort. They give leaders the illusion of control because they never introduce complexity, never challenge ego, never force hard choices. So here's the third principle. If you attack the idiot directly, you awaken their protector, and you will be punished not for being wrong, but for disturbing the peace. Intelligent people love clean fights. Facts versus delusion. Competence versus incompetence. They assume that if the evidence is obvious, the system will correct itself. But systems rarely correct themselves. Systems defend themselves. So, your task is not to expose stupidity. Your task is to expose cost, because stupidity becomes intolerable only when it becomes expensive to the people who shield it. That is the true leverage point. First, identify who benefits from the idiot. Ask yourself, why is this person still here? Sometimes it's emotional. They make the boss feel smart. Sometimes it's political. They belong to the right clique. Sometimes it's historical. We've always had them. Sometimes it's narrative. They mean well. Until you understand the function they serve, you will misfire. You will strike the pawn while the king watches, and the king will crush you for touching his toy. Machiavelli's world was full of this. Princes kept incompetence near because competence is demanding. A competent advisor brings reality. Reality is heavy. The incompetent brings agreement. Agreement is light. Many rulers prefer lightness, even if it costs them later. So you don't start by humiliating the idiot. You start by tightening the environment around them. Second, make their work measurable. Socially protected idiots survive by hiding inside ambiguity. They speak in generalities. They make vague promises. They create confusion and then claim victory for surviving it. Your move is to make everything they touch have a visible metric, a deadline, and an owner. not to get organized, to create gravity, because gravity punishes fantasy. When results are tracked, excuses shrink. When timelines exist, delays become visible. When responsibilities are assigned, blame becomes harder to throw. And if they try to wriggle out of it, you remain calm and repeat the same line like a judge. Who owns the outcome? That question is a blade, because it is not an argument. It is a demand for accountability. It forces the protector to either accept the risk themselves or stop protecting the idiot. Third, never fight their personality. Fight their impact. You will be tempted to say, they're incompetent. Don't. That becomes subjective. That becomes personal. That becomes a social war where you look elitist. Instead, you say, this decision caused X. This promise created Y risk. This missed deadline cost Z. Impact is undeniable. Impact is boring. And boring is your ally. Drama feeds idiots. Documentation starves them. Machiavelli would tell you to use reality as your executioner. Let the idiot hang themselves with consequences, not with your opinion. Fourth, build alliances quietly, not mobs loudly. If you publicly campaign against the protected fool, you create enemies. People will defend them out of identity, loyalty, or fear of being next. So you move like a conspirator, not a crusader. You have private conversations with the people who suffer from the idiot's decisions. You share specific examples, not insults. You frame it as risk management, not personal dislike. And you never sound emotional. Emotion makes you look biased. Calm makes you look correct. Your goal is to shift the room's perception without triggering the protector's alarm system. Then, when the moment comes, the protector finds themselves alone, because protection is expensive when nobody else believes in it. Here is the hardest truth intelligent people must swallow. Many idiots are not removed because they are foolish. They are removed because they become inconvenient. So you do not ask the world to value intelligence. You make stupidity costly enough that even shallow people can see it. That is Machiavellian realism. You are not here to be admired for being smart. You are here to remain untouchable while others drown in their own noise. And once you master this, you can deal with any idiot, no matter how protected they are, because you won't be fighting them. You'll be using the system's hunger for results against them. Intelligent people don't get destroyed by idiots, because idiots are strong. They get destroyed because they assume the rules are fair. They assume that competence will be recognized, that truth will rise, that the room will eventually grow tired of nonsense. But Machiavelli would warn you, crowds do not reward truth. They reward confidence, simplicity, and a story that flatters them. So, the fourth principle is this: never compete with an idiot on the battlefield of persuasion. Control perception instead, because the idiot's true weapon is not stupidity, it's social physics. They speak in slogans, you speak in nuance. They offer certainty, you offer complexity. They accuse, you explain. And in the eyes of the average person, the one who explains looks guilty. The one who is certain looks powerful. This is why fools rise. Not because they are skilled, but because they understand the primitive appetite of groups. So you need a new strategy. You must stop trying to win arguments and start managing optics. First, keep your superiority invisible. The most common mistake is visible contempt, a sigh, a smirk, a tone. The intelligent person broadcasts disgust without realizing it, and the room interprets it as arrogance. Arrogance triggers coalition. People may not love the idiot, but they will unite against someone who makes them feel inferior, especially if they suspect your intelligence is also judging them. Machiavelli's advice is simple: appear relatable, not elevated. Let others discover your competence through results, not through performance. You can be sharper than everyone in the room, but your face must remain neutral, your voice unhurried, your posture calm. You don't look impressed. You don't look offended. You look inevitable. Second, speak in verdicts, not essays. When an idiot throws nonsense into the air, your instinct is to dismantle it piece by piece. That's how intelligent minds work. But the crowd doesn't track details. They track emotional signals. So you answer with short, controlled conclusions. Not, here are 5 reasons that's wrong, but that won't work. Not, the data suggests, but the risk is unacceptable. Not, you're misunderstanding, but you're skipping the constraints. This is not dumbing yourself down. This is speaking like authority. The prince does not debate the peasant. He issues a judgment and moves on. The judgment becomes the frame. The frame becomes reality. Third, make the idiot repeat themselves. Idiots succeed by moving quickly. They throw out 10 claims and you feel forced to chase each one. They overwhelm you with quantity. So slow them down, ask one question calmly, and demand a direct answer. Which part exactly are you taking responsibility for? What is your evidence? Define what you mean by success. Give me the next 3 steps. And then you stop talking. Silence is pressure. It exposes performance. If they ramble, the room sees it. If they dodge, the room feels it. If they get angry, the room understands who is unstable. You didn't attack them. You gave them a stage with no script. Fourth, build a reputation that makes stupidity afraid of you. This is the deeper game. Reputation is preemptive power. You want to become the kind of person whose disapproval carries cost, even when you say little, not through cruelty, through consistency. When you speak, decisions become clearer. When you lead, outcomes improve. When you are involved, chaos decreases. Over time, people begin to associate you with stability, and stability is magnetic. Then, when an idiot challenges you, it doesn't look like a brave rebel versus an arrogant intellectual. It looks like a reckless disruptor versus the adult in the room. That is perception control. Machiavelli understood that the most effective power is the power that rarely needs to act. The threat of your competence, the expectation of your judgment, becomes enough. And here's the final move in this chapter. Let the idiot win small victories. Yes, let them have their little applause. Let them dominate a minor conversation. Let them believe they triumphed, because nothing is more disarming than an enemy who seems unbothered. If you fight every small battle, you look reactive, you look insecure, you look like you need the room to agree with you. But if you let them win crumbs while you quietly secure the real territory, resources, alliances, decision rights, you become untouchable. The idiot celebrates noise. You accumulate leverage. And that is the Machiavellian division between the intelligent and the foolish. The fool wants to look powerful. The strategist wants to be powerful. When you stop trying to convince everyone and start controlling how you are perceived, idiots lose their only advantage. Because you're no longer playing their game, you're designing the board. At some point, the idiot will try to pull you into an emotional arena. They'll bait you with disrespect. They'll misrepresent what you said. They'll trigger you in public, then smile as if they've proven something. Because idiots don't defeat intelligent people with logic, they defeat them by making them lose composure. Machiavelli would recognize this as a classic tactic. If you cannot overpower a stronger mind, you destabilize it. You force the opponent to fight on terrain where precision becomes useless, where the crowd judges tone, not truth. So the 5th principle is this: never give an idiot your emotion, give them your boundaries. The intelligent person often believes restraint means endurance. They tolerate, they absorb, they take the high road. They let things slide to avoid conflict. And slowly, the idiot learns a lesson. You are safe to disrespect, not because you deserve it, but because you permit it. Power is not politeness. Power is enforcement. First, decide your non-negotiables in advance. In the moment, you will be tempted to improvise. Improvisation is where emotion sneaks in, so you pre-write your rules. What you will not tolerate: public undermining, dishonest framing of your words, interruptions, personal insults, scope creep, last-minute demands. If you don't define the line, the idiot will define it for you right where it benefits them. Second, enforce quietly, not theatrically. The idiot wants drama. Drama makes them feel alive. Drama recruits spectators. Drama turns your boundary into a spectacle they can spin as you being sensitive. So Your enforcement must be calm, minimal, and repetitive. A single sentence, delivered like policy. Don't speak to me that way. I'm not continuing this conversation in that tone. Put it in writing. We'll revisit this when you can be specific. Stop interrupting me. Then silence. No lecture, no explanation, no anger. The boundary is not a debate. It's a wall. Machiavelli understood that authority is felt most when it is not performed. The moment you over-explain your boundary, you make it negotiable. The idiot hears, if I argue enough, I can move it. So you don't argue, you withdraw access. Third, punish patterns, not moments. If an idiot slips once, it may be noise. If it repeats, it is strategy conscious or not. Intelligent people often treat each incident as isolated. They forgive repeatedly because they keep hoping the next interaction will be different. But patterns are the person. So you respond to repetition with escalation, not emotional escalation, structural escalation. They interrupt repeatedly. You stop meeting live. Everything becomes written. They misquote you. You summarize every decision in an email or message immediately after. They create confusion. You insist on agendas, minutes, and owners. They ambush you. You stop taking spontaneous calls. You schedule. The idiot is not punished by anger. They are punished by losing improvisational space. Fourth, never threaten what you won't do. The weak boundary is the dramatic boundary. If you do that again, I swear. And then nothing happens. That trains the idiot to disrespect you. A Machiavellian boundary is quiet and automatic. It triggers a consequence every time, like gravity. You don't announce it. You simply let reality answer. If they violate the line, you end the call. You leave the room. You remove them from the thread. You stop sharing context. You reduce access. No explanation beyond one sentence. Because the goal is not to teach them. The goal is to protect your position. And here is the most ruthless part. Sometimes you must let them think you're cold. Idiots exploit warmth. They exploit the desire to be liked. They exploit the intelligent person's tendency toward fairness. So you accept a controlled reputation, not mean, not emotional, just unavailable to nonsense. That reputation becomes a perimeter. People learn quickly what they can't do around you, and the idiot who survives by pushing social limits finds you unusually expensive to play with. This is how intelligent people stay sane in a foolish world. Not by winning every exchange, not by correcting every mistake, by creating a psychological environment where stupidity cannot feed on their attention, their guilt, or their patience. You become the kind of person an idiot cannot comfortably approach. And that is a form of power most people never learn until it's too late. You've seen what most people never admit out loud. Stupidity isn't merely annoying. It is a force. It spreads through proximity. It hijacks rooms through noise, and it survives through social protection. And if you've been trying to defeat it with patience, explanations, and fairness, you've been paying a tax no one thanked you for. The intelligent don't win by arguing better. They win by choosing the arena, controlling access, starving incentives, and enforcing boundaries without emotion. They don't correct fools. They design worlds where fools cannot cause damage. That is the difference between being smart and being sovereign. If you want the rest of this doctrine, how to turn chaos into leverage, how to make disrespect expensive, and how to make your presence a perimeter, then you know what to do. Like this video, subscribe, not for entertainment, but for alignment. Initiation favors the disciplined.